This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
Welcome again to another episode of The Good, the Bad, and the Hungee on the Voice of Wrestling Podcasting Network. And I'm in Tyler Fornes, but Fred, I have a really big question for you. How do you feel about our show streaming exclusively to Honor Club starting in January of 2023?
Well, you know, I really value our partnership with Warner Media, and I appreciate all they've done for The Good, the Bad, and the Hungee. And so I just want to respect them and not go against them with another media company. I'll take all questions about what it feels like for someone to win a championship belt now.
You know, let's start by talking about this because we have a lot of news to get to, and then we are, as we talked about, going to break down ROH's final battle, and we'll do some quick thoughts on Dynamite and Rampage as well, because there weren't a ton of talking points, but the big ones from those shows really tie into the news portion of the show, which is going to take up a lot of our time. Tony Khan is unable to secure a TV deal for Ring of Honor, but unfortunately, due to the lack of professionalism in the scrum afterwards, we don't know why. We don't know who he negotiated with. We don't know what kind of offers there were, if there were any, if he's even able to negotiate outside of Warner Brothers Discovery, because there's a chance that within the contract, there lies specific language that forbids him to have a competitor with another broadcasting partner. Fred, I just want to give our friends at the flagship, their Patreon, they did a live instant reaction, and Joe Lanz absolutely buried the living hell out of the wrestling media for not asking any questions, even ones that Tony Khan blatantly set up because he knew that questions were coming. Like, we know it's bad. We know that the media just absolutely blew this, and most of the people in that room don't have any kind of professional journalism experience, so obviously they're not going to answer those questions. Whether they should be credentialed is a whole different topic, but they were, and that is that. My question for you, Fred, isn't about necessarily the scrum or the missing pieces of information that we have regarding it going to Honor Club instead of getting a television deal of any form or even going to YouTube. My question for you is, how does this impact Ring of Honor in a positive or negative light? And is there a path to getting on TV?
I mean, there's always a path, I suppose. The question is, are they going to get enough money to make it worth their while? Frankly, I'm not very optimistic about their, ability to get paid. Especially just what they're doing right now. Because the Honor Club is just $10 a month for the weekly TV, and then you don't even get the pay-per-views until 90 days later. So it's actually a worse deal than the old Honor Club under the previous ownership. But I think that it's a bad sign. It's definitely not a good sign that they are just putting this on Honor Club without even trying to, or without any sign of it going quickly to a TV station of some sort. What I would assume they would try to do is a package deal with the AEW properties when their TV deals are up. Is that at the end of 2023? I'm trying to recall right now. I'm not sure.
So their initial deal was October of 2019 for 3 years. And then about 6 months later, actually, just after the pandemic started, they got an extension.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that was, I don't know how long the extension was for. I think it was only for that 6 months where they basically rewrote the TV deal.
Yeah.
So I believe we're talking March or April of 2023 as the end.
Okay. Let's see. There's a just rapid Google has it's a May 2021 article from Wrestling Inc. that says, citing Meltzer, that the deal still expires in 2023. I don't know offhand if we have more pressing information or more up-to-date information, but that seems to be pretty consistent. So assuming it is the end of 2023, that's not too terribly long with regards to, how long they have just going on our club if they're able to then get another deal. But this is very much a future play. In general, the Ring of Honor deal is like the purchase of Ring of Honor, to be clear, in terms of what the deal is that I'm speaking of there. But no, this isn't good news. It's not like a disaster, but they're probably going to lose some money on Ring of Honor for a while. Because it's a crowded marketplace right now for your just streaming dollars in general, but specifically wrestling dollars with, just think of all the services that are out there, Impact Plus, of course, Peacock with the network on it now, New Japan World, Stardom, all the companies that are online now, because that's such a commonplace thing now. And to ask people to spend that $10 a month and then also pay $30 or $40 a month, for pay-per-views for Ring of Honor, and then on top of that, all the AEW stuff. I mean, I feel like that's a big ask in the modern marketplace.
I think here's how I would approach it. If I'm going to put it on Honor Club, I think what I would do is I would load up the first TV taping, put a really good product out, have people go to Honor Club to watch it, but have the first 4 episodes be not paywalled, be unlocked, let everybody view it. So then you at least are going to say, hey, I understand Honor Club is X, Y, and Z. It may not be the most appetizing considering what we're asking. We're asking you to pay for weekly television along with a back catalog. And not everybody's going to want the back catalog, because a lot of people coming into ROH, you have people like us who have nostalgia for the product. You also have a lot of people who are AEW fans who just want to see more AEW wrestlers in it, as an appendix or an attachment to what AEW is. Like, this is essentially an AEW offshoot at this point that Tony Khan is trying to revitalize into hopefully rebuilding the great image that Ring of Honor once had. Well, those fans aren't going to care about the back catalog except, oh, I love Samoa Joe. Here's a cool Samoa Joe match from 2005. Like that you might be able to get some draw with the back catalog, but outside of people like us, the back catalog's not going to have a ton of value. So then essentially you're asking them to pay $10 a month for weekly television. We know how that worked with AEW. We just saw how it worked in a lesser dollar amount for the NWA. It is not going well for them either. So I guess if you want them to just go to Honor Club and you offer for free and hopes to entice them to attach on, I can see that potentially being a strategy, but feels like you should just put these on YouTube, grow an audience, cultivate it, and then try to score a TV deal. But just straight Honor Club, it feels like it feels like a miss, not because they didn't land a TV deal, because this is how they resolved not landing a TV deal.
Yeah, and I mean, there's so many things to consider here, because putting it on Honor Club is the choice of money over exposure, and there's always the argument that exposure would lead to more money down the road. And if they are really going to do a hard divide between the AEW and Ring of Honor rosters, there's a lot of people on the Ring of Honor roster that would really benefit from exposure. Just to point to one, Willow Nightingale. I think the last thing you want to do right now is to sequester her off from the world for a whole year, if not longer. And that can very much be a detriment to her career and to Ring of Honor as well. Because I do think she could be a draw for him. That's how high I am on her, just in terms of her charisma. I think that probably the reason they aren't putting it on YouTube is because YouTube does not make them that much money, I would have to think. If it was up to me, I probably would have replaced AEW Dark Elevation with the Ring of Honor TV show. But if you're really going to push the Honor Club thing, you're just going to be drawing 100% off of the weekly TV. Well, okay, not 100%, but the vast, every time there's been a report on like what is the most watched thing on the WWE network or anything else, it's always the recent stuff. The going back to the old stuff is not a major moving point for viewership. Now you can, like you said, with the Samoa Joe example, you could definitely try to make that, meaningful. Like, hey, you came here to watch Claudio, win a TV match. Click here to watch 5 very good Claudio matches from back in the day, that kind of stuff. But no one's really hit upon the formula on which to make that work. Now, I will say WWE in general, I don't think has really pushed it hard when they have their network. And I think that other streaming services don't push it that hard. So, okay, if you want to come up with like if you could try, there's no guarantee it'll work, but you could try and just push it real hard, like have Ian Riccaboni in a studio for an hour or 2 a week, just hosting a live episode or a live go through the archives and feature maybe one event, or focus on 3 or 4 matches of one guy. And you could try doing that. But again, while I think I would enjoy that, I don't think that it would draw in too many people as a breaking point of, should I pay money for this service?
And I think one thing, like you kind of mentioned, hey, you can do this, you can do that, like the match gimmick. I know on the Voice of Wrestling Patreon, at $1, $5, and $10 tiers, by the way, they have the match of the week. And the match of the week is always makes sense in the concept of wrestling. There's always something going on, and that's what Joe draws from when he ends up picking the match. And I think stuff like that are going to be a great way to retain people with Honor Club. But I don't necessarily think that it's going to be a draw for people to want to join Honor Club. Like,
I don't think so either.
Yeah. And I think, to me, that's the biggest issue. And there was talk in our office Slack about this, how it was, and I'm trying to remember the exact point about it, what they were saying. I don't remember. If I remember, I'll bring it up. But it just feels like a really big disappointment that it's just a straight Honor Club move. But one thing that I found interesting is the pay-per-views are going to be changing for Honor Club subscribers. You're not going to be, because I believe the deal was, if you were an Honor Club subscriber, you got a 50% off discount for the pay-per-views.
I think they were actually included for free if you're a subscriber, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on that, but it was one of the other.
At one point, they were 50% off. I remember that being a thing.
Yeah. I think towards the end, it was you get the pay-per-views for free, and also you get a percentage discount on our merchandise shop. Now, granted, most Ring of Honor merchandise look like crap, and I never bought any, but I didn't say that out loud. Yeah, so like, I don't know. It feels like a worse deal, which is not great. But the number of people that probably are aware of it being worse is relatively low, so I don't think they're really doing any damage. But it's not good.
Yeah, it's definitely not good, and it's honestly a really disappointing blow for Ring of Honor. And I remember the take. I had it, and I also saw it in the office Slack, so I'm going to take partial credit for it, because I know I'm not the only one, and there are a lot of smart people in there that have the same take. I hypothesized that if Ring of Honor doesn't get a television deal, it's not going to be based on quality. It's going to be based on the fact that Ring of Honor literally announced that they were going on a hiatus and essentially going out of business just about a year ago. And why would a television company see that, hey, you went bankrupt, so I think we can make a lot of money? Like, just that general construct, I think, is one of the reasons why. And we don't know, because nobody asked the damn question. But yeah. I think it's why this product, like if Tony Khan decided to name it something completely different, if he wasn't a nostalgic wrestling nerd who believes in restoring wrestling history and treasuring it and honoring it, and I know that's kind of punny, but it's not meant to be, then I think Ring of Honor probably would have had a better chance to get a television deal, because the name Ring of Honor, outside of the 3 shows that Tony Khan has done, is most notable in the media landscape for failure rather than being any form of success. Do you agree with that?
Well, I think, I don't know. I'm kind of mixed on it because on the one hand, I don't know how much value the Ring of Honor name does present to the modern market. Now, you can argue that there's been a year of really great pay-per-views. I think every Ring of Honor pay-per-view has been very entertaining, and that the buy rates have been solid on them. I think we're still waiting on some kind of numbers from Final Battle, so we'll see on that one. But I think they've all been pretty respectable, considering that it's Ring of Honor branded and all this stuff. But at the same time, like, I know Dave Meltzer always expresses shock that he's using the Ring of Honor name rather than the AEW name, because the AEW name will provide more buys. But I think that what that kind of misses is that these shows are not Ring of Honor shows. They're kind of like AEW's NXT. Is about the closest comparison I can make. It's something of a developmental territory with a couple of decent level stars on top. And I think that if you were to present like Final Battle as a AEW pay-per-view, but then like most of the top AEW stars aren't on it, I think that would upset the audience that buy it. So I think it's kind of somewhere in the middle. Should Ring of Honor just be renamed to insert generic created name from TEW here, United States Championship Wrestling or something? I guess you could make that argument. I don't think it really makes much of a difference either way, because even if you do associate the name Ring of Honor with the failures under Sinclair, what doesn't change is that I think that no matter what name you put on it, these Briscoes FTR matches will draw. And I think they have, and I think they will to some extent, at least on Final Battle. I think there was kind of a unfortunate situation with being on at like 3 p.m. in the afternoon. I think that'll hurt buys a little bit. But yeah, that's kind of my take on it.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I found it interesting that the best shows that Ring of Honor did as far as drawing power only reached about 20% of, like, I think what the baseline for AEW pay-per-views is as far as buy rate, because you're talking about 150,000 viewers, buyers. That's about the median at this point for an AEW show. That's kind of like that threshold at this point. Like the first one's got about 100,000. I think their worst was 90, and their best was obviously All Out 2021, which was an all-time show. Yeah. And that did, I think, about 210, and it was just absurdly high because of a variety of factors. One of them being CM Punk's first match in damn near a decade. Like,
closer, 8 years, I think.
And the rest of the show was loaded. You had the match of the year with the Young Bucks and Lucha Brothers in the cage. There were extenuating circumstances to that, but 150,000, that's your baseline. Ring of Honor's doing 30,000 as essentially an offshoot of AEW without those top stars. Now, Chris Jericho obviously headlined this show, but he was never a ROH like long time competitor. It's like, it feels like somebody coming into WWE at the Royal Rumble and then wrestling for a couple months, doing WrestleMania, and then leaving. That's kind of how I felt this Chris Jericho run was, except I actually think he tried to build the prestige of Ring of Honor by holding the title, because Chris Jericho means something in professional wrestling. He means something with television and ratings. He just does. So that whole arc makes sense. But outside of that, you're building around the Briscoes, Dalton Castle and the boys. Now it feels like Top Flight is going to be a huge act on Ring of Honor, which I think is a tremendous idea. You have Athena, who's now holding your women's title. Samoa Joe, your legacy mainstay, who still delivers on the mic and in the ring. You're building around outside of AEW talent. And because you're building around that outside talent, like it's really, you can't consider it a true like AEW branded program. And I think you kind of alluded to that. It's its own entity, and it's going to be really fascinating to see how this ends up working out, because Tony Khan's booking is objectively very, very good. But at the same time, it's how is it going to work when Tony Khan does not have his top stars? Because we know how Rampage has been. Rampage, as we talked about last week, is booked horribly, and it feels like there might have been a corner turned with the Moxley Takeshita match, which I saw some people throwing 5 stars at. Do not blame them. But we're gonna need more data before we give them any kind of credit outside of just shoehorning in a match because you needed to pop a rating. I want to see that they're taking care of it, and I worry that because Tony Khan does not have the kind of star power that he has with AEW, that you're going to see the same thing happen with Ring of Honor, and it's going to be something that we're going to monitor very closely.
Yeah, and one thing I think that definitely, is to watch with the Rampage space is that I think he's done this before. This exact, we'll put all hands on deck for Rampage. It's going to really matter now, and then like 3 weeks later, it's back to Rampage. We'll see if that happens again. I'm hopeful that he'll be very mindful of that going forward, but. And I don't even know what the expectations are for Ring of Honor to be considered a success by Tony Khan right now, because is it a matter of, like, are they hoping to just break even for this year, which could be difficult alone, let alone make a profit? Are they just hoping to get some footage together so that they can sell it to somebody with as or not as part of AEW's video library? I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's an interesting situation. And I guess we'll just have to keep an eye on it and see what happens with it. He did tease, or outright say, really, no teasing, that New Japan would be part of Ring of Honor moving forward as the Hungee cat makes a run in. So we'll see what that means. And if it's like, we're going to be sitting over Naito every once in a while or something, or if it instead means, hey, we're sitting over Danny Limelight, or whatever young boy is on excursion right now, because I think one would make a difference and one would not.
No, I agree completely, and I'm very intrigued to see, especially with the U.S. presence of New Japan Strong, how there ends up being some sort of symbiotic relationship between the two. Do they have conversations about potentially merging the two programs? I think that is a long way away. But I think the idea of at least having a home base for Ring of Honor, and albeit it's across the country from where Tony Khan is usually located down in Jacksonville, Florida, I think it could be a really interesting move. You would obviously be building up the future for both New Japan and AEW with the kind of talent that you're going to be utilizing. And you mentioned the likes of Danny Limelight. You have Fred Rosser, who's been doing a tremendous job as the strong openweight champion. You have all their young boys. You have the young talent that Tony Khan has that he's going to prioritize in Ring of Honor. I think that partnership is going to be very key, because at one point, the Ring of Honor and New Japan partnership was all but dead. And the dynamics is going to be really, really interesting, because Tony Khan has the high ground with AEW, but you could also argue he has the low ground with Ring of Honor. So how they interact, the politics with everything, and how everything's going to tie in together, Fred, I think is going to be the most fascinating thing to keep an eye on for wrestling in 2023.
Yeah, I agree. That'll be a very interesting relationship to follow. Now, speaking of relationships to follow and being based in Ring of Honor, being based in New Japan, and changing companies, this is a flawless transition. Let's talk about Sasha Banks. So,
Sasha Banks.
Yeah, I'm definitely working the algorithm here, baby. Okay, so Sasha Banks is reportedly, and this was broken by Mike Johnson, with Dave Meltzer confirming that she is going to be at the Tokyo Dome, Wrestle Kingdom, on January 4th. And the anticipation is that she will be signing to work some dates for the New Japan / Stardom Alliance, which raises a whole bunch of questions, which I want to go through right now. Because first of all, obviously her being able to do stuff for Stardom or AEW would, one, be awesome, and two, be great for those companies. AEW could really use a shot in the arm because in my mind, Sasha Banks is the biggest star in North American women's wrestling right now by a decent margin. And I also think she's a top level competitor. She's just a great performer. She's good on the microphone. She's great in the ring. Anyone that can get her is getting a get. This would be fantastic for Stardom because it would be a great way for them to break into the North American market. I think that it could even blow the doors off what Chris Jericho going over to do the matches for them back in, I think, 2019 did for the New Japan subscription service. I think Stardom World could pick up even a greater percentage if it's advertised well and everything. However, I do want to point out that I'm kind of dubious if this will happen because WWE has a history and has probably has with her the contractual ability to freeze and extend her contract for failure to perform. And I feel like that's kind of not really being talked about much in this space because, everyone's just excited about the possibility of Sasha Banks coming back to wrestling. But WWE has done this multiple times over. They've done it with Daniel Bryan when he was out with his injuries. They did it with Rey Mysterio when he had his injuries. The list of people they've done it with is long. And also WWE has a long history of trying to keep top stars from moving to competitors whenever they can do that. And logically that makes sense just from a business move. Obviously, that's not like a moral judgment. It's just what wrestling is, and especially how WWE approaches that. So, I don't know, assuming that she is actually done with her contract with WWE by the year's end, which is what the current reports are, it'll be very interesting to watch what she does, because she was reportedly asking WWE for, this is per Meltzer, Dave Meltzer, more money than WWE has really ever given a woman star before. And he referred to it as kind of breaking their contract structure, At the same time, he pointed out that not only did he think that she was worth it, but also that like WWE, if you look at the revenues, underpays everyone under contract, even the top guys, which is a very fair point because by percentage of revenue, pro wrestling is way behind what the NBA, MLB, NFL, etc., NHL, what their structures are. So another thing to note with this is that New Japan does not have WWE money. New Japan has been struggling to basically break even the past few years with the pandemic because of their limited attendance and everything. And so the question is this just basically Sasha coming in for, a checklist, bucket list kind of, I want to wrestle in Stardom at some point situation? Or do you think she's actually going to be with Stardom long term? And if so, do you think she's going to be doing this as part of a split deal between Stardom and AEW?
It's a great question. Let's break it down a little bit here. One, I want to start with the WWE contract situation that you mentioned. It was widely reported, and I believe that Bryan Danielson actually said it himself, that WWE basically held him hostage when he first signed that extension, basically saying, hey, you missed all this time. You can't go sign with anybody else. You got to sign with us. My guess is when he signed that contract extension, that basically nullified any leverage they had over him for missing all that injury time. So there is precedent, one, that this has happened before with wrestlers, and two, that they've held them over a barrel and made sure that they didn't negatively impact their business at all. I also think that without knowing them personally, just kind of by going off things, I don't think Triple H is going to be as vindictive as Vince McMahon in these situations. I think I'm not saying that he's just going to let Sasha Banks waltz into AEW, but I also think he's going to be, especially because to our knowledge, he doesn't have any part of this issue. I think he is not going to be like, oh, you screwed me over. No, I'm not letting you do anything. I just don't think he's going to have that in him in this situation. I also know that Sasha Banks is a huge nerd. She loves wrestling. She has been over to Stardom multiple times.
And you mean that in a very positive way, correct?
Oh, this is only a term of endearment in this situation. She's a wrestling nerd. She is one of us. She loves the Japanese style. She loves wrestling. She's already trained at Stardom multiple times. She's got friends over there. Kairi's back over there now. And we know Kairi is going to be defending the IWGP Women's Championship at Wrestle Kingdom. So the fact that she's going to, quote unquote, be there, it's easy to put two and two together that she is going to be the one facing Kairi for the title. And you can understand why. Big draw. They have great chemistry together. So you know they're going to be able to put on a really good match. And considering that this is going, I believe, now when the card gets fully released after this World Tag League Tour, I could be completely wrong. But I believe this will be the first match on the main card, because I believe the other ones were darker pre-show matches. This will be the first women's match on a Wrestle Kingdom card, the main card.
Yes,
and
that is my understanding as well.
And I think they want it to make it a big deal. Well, what bigger deal than having Sasha Banks come and take on your champion? And I think that could lead to a long-term thing with Stardom, because I would guess Bushiroad understands how popular she is with women's wrestling in the States, and they want to make headway in the States. Like, this is the perfect way to do it. What could this mean for New Japan and AEW? We really don't know. But I'll hypothesize this. If she can cut a Jon Moxley contract, where she can do pretty much whatever she wants in Japan, I could easily see a path where she ends up signing, and that January 11th match in Los Angeles, she is the mystery partner for one Saraya. That we may be getting a little ahead of ourselves.
That's a possibility.
Putting the forest before the trees, but everything lines up. Everything makes logical sense for somebody who has shown that she loves wrestling. She wants to wrestle. She's okay losing as long as it makes sense, and treat titles with reverence. What do these companies do? They love wrestling.
Yep.
They treat their titles with reverence.
Yep.
They don't fuck around and treat their employees like shit. Now, do they make the smartest booking decisions? We've criticized booking from all of these guys. Like, nobody's perfect.
Yeah, that's
but
always
you come in here that everything's setting up perfectly for a Sasha Banks return to wrestling. Now, one thing I want to point out, and they talked about this in one of the pre-match videos on Final Battle. Athena mentioned that, hey, WWE doesn't do wrestling. They do entertainment. I tried it. It's not my thing. She wanted to come back and wrestle, and that's what she's doing. And I could see Sasha Banks being the exact same way. Even though she's done stuff like The Mandalorian, she's doing signings and stuff, which good for her. She's making like $300 for a picture and an autograph. Like,
get the cash.
Hell yeah. That's tremendous value.
Stay over on the other side of the picture. I'm sorry. I will always love the picture of her like making the guy stand like 5 feet from her, which.
Oh yeah. Because you see the creepy ones.
I get it.
Yeah.
It makes 100% sense.
Yeah. You see the creepy ones and it's just like, yeah, stay away from me. Like, don't blame her one bit. But as far as being a professional wrestler, everything that I know without actually speaking directly to Sasha Banks, which unfortunately I've never had to do, but I bet she's awesome. Everything we know, I can easily hypothesize that she comes, wrestles at Wrestle Kingdom against Kairi, and then returns as the tag team partner Saraya. Do we know anything? No, but it all lays out perfectly, and that could be massive for the wrestling business. She could be a CM Punk level draw. Will she be? I don't know, but the following, she was one of like 2 ratings movers with WWE.
She's a genuine star, 100% a top star.
A genuine star, a genuine draw, and she should be the one. And we're going to fantasy book here for a second. You got to get the title off Jade Cargill. You have Sasha Banks beat her at Revolution. Nobody's going to think less of Jade Cargill if Sasha Banks beats her.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have 2 megastars in the ring. That could go on second to last. It could be a 5-minute match. Nobody would care.
Yeah.
Like, that's the kind of star power you would have in the ring. And when we know more, we will deliver more. And when it happens, which I believe it will, we're going to have a fun time on this space talking about it, because it's going to be a massive shift in both wrestling and more specifically women's wrestling in the United States of America.
I think it would be great for women's wrestling in the U.S. I think that if it happens, it will be very good for AEW and Stardom. I just have to say that I'm kind of dubious if it'll happen, because I think that if nothing else, WWE is fond of the defensive play. And I think that if they can legally extend her contract and ruin these plans, they will. And I don't think that changes because Triple H is on top. I think that's just what WWE sees as good business sense. I can logically defend it. It makes sense. If like your competition's getting ready to take away one of your top stars, but you can block that for, months, I would be very tempted to do that too. It might make that person, the wrestler in question, very angry at you. But if you've already kind of written off that relationship in the short term, then what does that mean? I could see them doing it. It's not what I want to see happen, but it could happen.
It absolutely could. And I'm very excited to see how it happens. But we don't know much more than speculation at this point. The only thing we can confirm is that she'll be at Tokyo Dome on 1/4. Yes. And I'm fascinated to see it. Wrestling's fun, baby. This is why multiple companies is good.
Free agency is awesome.
Speaking of free agency, William Regal did ask for Tony Khan to not pick up his option, and he is going back to WWE. And it was reported earlier today that he will be going back in a vice president role, but he cannot appear on television until after the year 2023. And all this was done because Regal wanted to go back and coach his son in NXT. I don't think anybody can blame a father for wanting to be with his child. And kudos to all involved for doing so admirably and without issue. Based on everything we know, everything was incredibly professional, and that's how you make an exit. But I think the most important thing we need to talk about with this, Fred, and I'm going to let you talk about it first because I kind of liked it, even though I also understand that it sucks. They did that extra segment where they had Regal film with Shivani if MJF turned on him, and he said he gave the Nux to MJF to teach one last lesson in the Blackpool Combat Club, and that was to always keep eyes in the back of your head. Watch your back. And logistically, I think it makes sense. I think based on the context of the story with Regal and especially with Danielson and Moxley being like a father figure to these men. Okay. Makes sense. Teach him a story. But it also kind of stunk. Like, I think we're on different sides here. I want to give you the opportunity to say your piece, and then I think I might defend this. I don't know yet.
Look, I won't say it was like a disaster or anything, but I thought this was very awkward. What it reminded me of was like an early 90s TV show, like a Murder, She Wrote, built around people coming in to watch a video will. This felt like we were watching William Regal's last will and testament for his AEW run that he put together just in case he was murdered by MJF. And then it was a furious attempt at a retcon. I don't think it makes any sense whatsoever. I thought it was extremely funny when the camera cut back to Jon Moxley in the ring and he had a look on his face like, what the hell was that? And then kind of just no-sold the whole video and just cut a generic Jon Moxley promo. I thought that was all very funny. I don't think this was like an all-time bad segment that does damage to a company, but I don't think it made any sense whatsoever. But I will say I thought it was classy to give Regal kind of a formal sending off on TV. And, in that regard, it was nice. But I didn't like it, how it was done. I thought that it just was very... had a very tenuous connection to what these characters would have done. But I'm willing to let it slide because I know that really the reason it happened is because they wanted to do kind of a classy send-off for William Regal. God, I can't talk. But that's my take on it. I don't have anything more, like I'm not gonna sit here for 10 minutes and rant about how every bit of it didn't make any sense or whatever. Like, it's just kind of a goofy way to work backwards and try to make something make sense that changed that had situations around it change.
Yeah, I don't think they needed to do it, but I liked how they went about doing it, at least tying connective tissue, having it make sense. Basically, MJF used Regal, which, I mean, it's MJF. He uses everybody to get whatever the hell he wants, and now he has the title. I think it's objectively fine, and I also have no problem with anybody burying it, but it ties up Regal. He's gone. It gives the group, like, hey, we're going to be done with the JAS. We're going to do our own thing. And obviously, Jon Moxley has Hangman Page in his sights. Claudio's the new Ring of Honor World Champion. And this all made sense while it being completely unnecessary, and you don't have to do it. But I don't have an issue with it. Like, they didn't screw anything up. They didn't make anybody look bad. They just made Regal look like a dunce. And then he had to tie it into, hey, I'm going to teach you guys a lesson because I was an idiot. Like, that's fine. If anything, you're burying Regal on the way out and letting him do so in a professional manner, which that's kind of the point. Like, in the territory days, when you leave a territory, you lie on your back, you take the 1, 2, 3 and you're gone. You put somebody else over. And it's almost like Regal did that. So I don't really have an issue.
I do think it kind of undercuts the emotional value of the previous week's angle where he got laid out by MJF. I thought that was fantastic. That part of it was. And I like that a lot. I thought it was done tremendously. I thought that Regal did a fantastic job selling it. I thought Danielson running out with one boot on was like a great selling point of it. And I feel like, this was basically Poochie died on his way back to his home planet kind of stuff. And it's kind of a shame that's a send-off formally rather than the very good wrestling angle that preceded it. But I also just, like, with regards to things I'm going to get mad about, this isn't that high on the list. It's just kind of like I'm shrugging at it. It's not great, but whatever.
It's objectively fine. That's what it is. Tony Khan said that he would be going all hands on deck for Rampage moving forward.
Yeah, we kind of touched on this already.
He said that after
he's
all
done
out.
This before. Yeah. And then we got some choose your favorite kind of crappy Rampage lineup. There's no shortage of them over the past couple months. It's a B show, and it's going to take a lot of work to make it not a B show. If they want to do that, they can, but it's going to take them making the appropriate changes. Like, they should announce that, Buck's Death Triangle number 6 has been moved to Friday night. If they want to make a difference, or hell, even 7, if you really want to make a difference, assuming they go 7, which they will. You could have MJF defend the title against someone that's not insert random mid-carder or lower here. And I objectively, if I'm looking at the Rampage lineup from last Friday, I mean, Moxley Takeshita is a fantastic match. But beyond that, like, it was everything else was just Rampage, baby. That's it, like the Bunny versus Sheeta is like a solid match that would be at home on either show. But I don't think it really means anything. You had a Big Bill and Lee Squash, and then you had Orange Cassidy against Trit 7, which, again, that's a solid match that would be at home on Dynamite or Rampage. But like Trit 7, I don't think, with no build, is really going to be popping those numbers as a surprise opponent. Although I like the match. I'm not dissing Trit 7. It's just
Trent 7 isn't a needle mover. Like, if you got basically Tyler Bate with this fan base, that's probably a needle mover.
That would do something. I mean, you could toss out 100 names. Like, if it was Chris Hero instead, I think that actually might have done more than Trent 7. But it was Trent 7. It was a solid match. We'll see what this week's Rampage is, because I don't think anything's been announced yet. But I mean, if they keep doing bangers on Rampage, then that'll change the perception of the show, but they're going to have to keep doing it. It's not just a 1 week thing.
Yeah, and they need to prove it. The John Moxley match with Takeshita was tremendous.
Oh, it was great. I went 4 3/4 on it. I thought it was just a ton of fun.
Yeah. But they need more of that, and we'll see if he's actually able to deliver or if this is just another empty promise. Let's continue moving on because there's a lot more to come with. Speaking of that match with Takeshita, Renee Paquette and John Moxley were ill this week. Renee missed TV, but Moxley had his flu game and had that match with Takeshita under the weather. I don't think Moxley's ever getting his vacation, but
let John Moxley go fishing, please.
Yes, let Moxley go fishing. You know what? That could play really well into the story with Hangman Page, that Moxley's ducking him because he's going fishing. And it would be especially funny if they tie in the fact that they Braun Breaker used fishing as the last build-up segment for that match.
Him and Apollo Crews. Apollo Crews caught a fish, but Braun didn't.
Just tremendous stuff. Moxley is the MVP this year, and I don't really think there's anybody that can compare. But we will talk more about the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame in a little bit, and probably touch on the awards as well. Let's talk about Miro for a second, though, Fred. Fightful reported that Creative had no ideas for him. Meltzer reported as a counter that they did have ideas. Miro turned them down last pay-per-view cycle, and he drew a parallel between him and Ethan Page, because it sounds like the idea was for Page to get a push, but then to eventually lose, and he did so to Ricky Starks. And my guess is, based on that parallel, that was the plans for Miro. Hopefully they can get him back in the building, because Miro wrestling for AEW is objectively great. He kicks ass, but I just wish that the mid-card guys were not so protected, because I think that's one of the reasons why Miro ended up turning that down. It's because he doesn't lose.
Yeah. Either push him like a main eventer and put him in main event spots, or just be like, listen, you're just, right now, at least you're a mid-carder, and we're going to book you like such, which means you'll lose to guys sometimes. The fact we didn't have Miro on TV for most of this year is a damn shame. I know that some people got tired of his promos against God, which I always kind of liked, even though they were repetitive. But I mean, I basically enjoyed him becoming a Final Fantasy protagonist, which is basically what he was. I will fight God and other people too. That always just kind of amused me. But I think he's a fantastic talent. He's a good worker. He's a good promo. He's got charisma. He looks like an ass kicker. So hopefully he'll be back on TV at some point and being able to do all those things.
Yeah, it's something that we could objectively use more good wrestlers. I like that. CM Punk posted WWE photos of himself on Instagram. We know how Instagram, Twitter are, and how people like to be kind of mysterious. Do you take anything from this, or is CM Punk just trying to mess with people?
I think it's just CM Punk screwing around. I don't read too much into it other than delete all social media and go back to Web 1.0.
Hey, did you ever watch The League, Fred?
I did not, sadly, though it has like so many of my favorite comedians in it. I listened to How Did This Get Made, and like everyone on that show was on The League, but Jason Mantzoukas and etc.
John LaJoie plays Taco, and he created a live social network called MyFace, where you basically have a fold up board that you used for like presentations in elementary school.
Yeah.
And that was your social network. So you created your profile on this fold up cardboard.
Like a poster board?
Yeah, poster board.
Nice.
And that was the new social network. That's exactly what you're talking about. Like the only good thing Twitter has is it made me a career in sports media. So I can never truly hate it, even though you probably should.
You know what's extremely funny, just to go on a complete segue here just for 1 minute, is you do those poster boards back in elementary school, and if you went on to do that, middle or high school, etc., it feels like extremely low grit and basically just doing something cheap, etc. But then you go to an actual scientific conference, and that's what they're using. Like, they all have their own posters set up. And it's just very funny to see, like, prestige, these people with prestigious degrees and stuff, like, standing next to a trifold poster. I don't know. That's the kind of thing that makes me, chuckle.
No, it should make you chuckle. There's so many little things, Fred. Just so many little things that
Life's
are
rich pageant.
Yeah, there's just hilarious. But we have one more piece of news before we really dive into the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame. And that is that Dustin Rhodes will be retiring from in-ring competition after 2023. I believe, Fred, this would put his career at about 40 years.
I want to say he debuted in 89. I think that's right.
I thought he debuted earlier than that.
Did he? Dang. Let me double check, because I know he went into WWF in 89, and he debuted in Championship Wrestling from Florida in 1988 and did a little bit of WCW, and then went into WWF in late 90. So, this will be a solid 35 years, which is a hell of a run, especially considering all of his extracurricular issues he had at times. And God bless him for getting clean. Like, that's a hell of an accomplishment right there, and staying clean. I think he's had objectively a very, very good career. I think he was basically a star everywhere he went when he was clean and in shape. And even like well past his prime, he's still a name that pops the crowd. He's a good worker. He's doing code reds at this point in his career, which granted, like, that doesn't always take the most work from the person giving the move, but still he's doing it. It's cool as hell. I'll miss Dustin Rhodes when he retires. I think that he's had a very good career, and so he's kind of an underrated worker.
No, he is a great hand, and somebody that, hey, I need a veteran to go have a really good match with a young guy, or, hey, I've got an open TV slot and I just want a good match. He's a guy you can count on to at least deliver a minimum of 3.5 star match, because he's going to go in there. He's going to work hard. He has enough good offense to kind of make that splash that is so appealing in a lot of today's wrestling. Like, Dustin doing a Canadian Destroyer will rule forever and ever.
Yes.
Because he's just such a large human. Like,
yeah, because he's like 6'6", legitimately, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, and it's good. It's good to have him in wrestling, but it sounds like he's going to continue to be involved behind the scenes, which is really where a lot of his value lies, Fred. Mm-hmm. He is an incredible resource, obviously being Dusty Rhodes' son, having wrestled in multiple promotions, including WCW at the end of the Jim Crockett promotion days. And then I believe he also wrestled for them at the end. I can't remember if Goldust ever ended up doing the little flippy do, but and he was also in TNA.
Let's not talk about the TNA days.
He
hates Dustin Rhodes himself hates talking about it, so I think that's.
Can you blame him?
Nope.
No, but it'll be sad to see him go, and hopefully we can get a really cool retirement match out of it. But
hell, let's make Rampage the Dustin Rhodes retirement tour.
Oh, hell yeah. I like the sound of that. Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame, Fred. We had 8 new inductees. Holy Demon Army. Akira Taue is finally in the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame. He and Toshiaki Kawada, they are widely viewed as one of the best tag teams of all time. Mystico, also known as the original Sin Cara, or
Caristico. Yeah, Caristico for a short period.
I thought there was an L in there. And the only reason why he was Caristico after he went back to Mexico is somebody had picked up the Mystico gimmick and he could not use it.
Yeah. I feel like I need a visual aid to draw out like the connections between the names.
Kota Ibushi makes the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame, as does Tetsuya Naito. So that really trims down the Japan region, which is objectively good for the future. And guys like Shingo Takagi, Tomohiro Ishii, Los Villanos, Rollerball, Mark Rocco, Lou Darrow, and Johnny Doyle. But probably the biggest names that just missed the cut, Rocca and Perez, the legendary tag team, Sergeant Slaughter, and Los Hermanos Dinamita. I think I said that right. Dinamita. We're all at 57%, which is the highest for Sergeant Slaughter. He has been making a real push to get in. And then CM Punk improved, I believe, from 34 to 41%. So even though he had Brawl Out, the AEW run still bumped him up 7%. Fred, 8 inductees. This is a really big year for the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame. And it also came when voters were way down. What do you make of all this?
I don't know what to think of the decrease in voters, particularly in the modern U.S. and Canada category. That's something I'll have to look at a little deeper. But frankly, the way Meltzer does this, it's hard to know if he cut a bunch of people, if a bunch of people just didn't vote, which would be weird because even if like they're just restricted, like if they just do the modern US and Canada thing, then I don't think that like the changes on the ballot would have made them not want to vote. Maybe he forgot to send out some ballots. I doubt it, but I can't rule it out because of the mystique of Dave Meltzer. I think that, a bunch of these people deserve to get in. I actually voted for, of course, Lou Darrow and Johnny Doyle were auto inductees by Meltzer because of how old they are. If you're past a certain point in time, which kind of seems very indeterminate, he will just induct you if he's convinced to. And they were promoters in the relatively early days of professional wrestling, and they got inducted. The other 6 were all voted in. And I did not vote in the British category, but I voted in the others, and I voted for all 5 inductees.
Hey, that's good. Look, I don't have a Wrestling Observer ballot yet, but Dave Meltzer, if you're listening, I would love one next year.
We can work on that together.
I think we can too. And this is good because I'm really excited to see what next year brings. The Young Bucks, in theory, should be slam dunks. But that is going to be an absolute dumpster fire discussion.
The absolute worst discourse ever in wrestling history is going to be coming next year. I can guarantee that. I think he also said that Jon Moxley and Seth Rollins will both be put back on the ballot, which will be very interesting. I think both are very interesting candidates. I'm not going to vote for Rollins at this point in time. I think he's a great worker, but I think he just has been slotted into that second tier WWE guy spot for a while. And I don't think that's a Hall of Fame case by itself. And I think that he's been kind of hamstrung in terms of having like the great matches that would help you overcome that. So to me, I would not vote for Rollins. Assuming Moxley wins Wrestler of the Year again, the Thez Flair Award, I'd be hard pressed not to vote for him for the Hall of Fame. I think he had a very respectable indie run prior to WWE. I think especially that first year in the Shield in WWE was Hall of Fame level. Then I think everything he's done since 2019, which is 4 years at this point, is Hall of Fame level. So I think that, I'll have to give him a good long look in terms of voting for him. There's also, I don't have it in front of me, but there's a Joshi team getting on the ballot, kind of from what I recall, like the pre-Crush Gals from like the late 70s, which sounds like a very interesting candidacy. But I can't recall their name or the individual names, so I suck at this. But yeah, that'll be interesting. I know a lot of people were upset that Argentina Rocca and Miguel Perez did not get inducted. They felt like they should have been kind of a slam dunk. I think there are just too many names on the ballot, especially in the historical U.S.-Canada. I think that's what happened there. I think Sergeant Slaughter is eventually going to get in, but there's a possibility that both he and Junkyard Dog get moved back to the historical candidacy, which will have a very interesting effect on their numbers, I think. And CM Punk, I saw a lot of like just bad Twitter discourse about CM Punk not getting in, with some people just being, Dave Meltzer's mad at him because of Brawl Out and how he offended Dave Meltzer's close personal friends, the Young Bucks. Which obviously just shows that they don't know like how the process works or anything. I think Punk is going to eventually get in. I think he would have done much better this year if it hadn't been for Brawl Out. I think that probably turned a lot of people off of him, but I think in the next year or two, those people will come around. And I think he probably will get inducted in the relatively near future. I doubt it'll be next year, but I guess we'll see.
He has an interesting case, even if you take out Brawl Out, because he obviously came back to wrestling and was an incredible ratings mover and a pay-per-view draw for the company. He had some really good in-ring matches, but his case before then was murky at best, and he was never truly great at any one of the 3 criteria that Dave Meltzer has laid out. He was good in all of them, but you never really saw him as a massive draw, especially within the context of WWE, until he got to AEW. And obviously Brawl Out hurts his case with some people, which I can understand, but I actually don't think it should hurt him at all. It's wrestling beef. It just was more public than private. That happens. And if he's gone from the company, he's gone from the company. But if I would have had a vote, I would have voted for CM Punk, just because I think his case it's a very good one.
I think so too. I wouldn't base my entire ballot for him off of like the Observer Newsletter awards, but I did a study of like award shares, which is basically a percentage of the maximum possible votes year over year for guys, and like compared career numbers. And CM Punk heading into this set of awards is 15th all time in the Flair Thez Award, going back to 1983, I think it is. He is pretty highly ranked in the most outstanding in-ring one. Let me find his exact number. 45th all time. On interviews, he is 5th all time. 13th and most charismatic. Back when they voted for best box office, which is no longer a thing, he was voted 105th all time, which is pretty solid in terms of match of the year, being a part of matches nominated for that. He's 30th all time. I mean, I just think that it's pretty clear that he is a very good candidate for this and should be in. In fact, if you go to the best announcer one, he even got enough votes from his short time as an announcer in WWE that he is 43rd all time in that, which really speaks more to a lack of candidates than anything else. But I think he's just a great all-around candidate. It really does. If you look closer, I think he actually excels in being a draw and work in ring work. So that's my take.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting cycle come next October and November. But we need to get going on some of the wrestling here. We have spent a good hour on.
It's an hour already. Good Lord.
Hey, you know what? It's been good discussion. So that time, in a sense, does not matter. Fred, let's talk about Final Battle. What were your overall thoughts of the show? I had a lot of fun.
I thought it was a very fun show. I think that Briscoe's FTR really kind of pushed it to an extra level. We'll get into that match specifically in a little bit, because I don't know that there was another great top level match on that card, but I think there was a bunch of very good matches, and I thought it was a lot of fun. My next highest rated matches were 3 that I put at 4 stars. But yeah, how do you want to approach this? Do you want to talk about everything on the show? Do you want to go match by match? It's all you're the point guard, baby.
I think we should just we've already gone over an hour. I think we just need to talk about kind of the big points. And one thing I want to start off with, Fred, which is a very interesting topic in itself, is the match with Swerve in Our Glory and Shane Taylor Promotions. Very good performance from Shane Taylor, and I cannot remember his name, so I'm going to pull it up.
JD Griffey?
Yeah. JD Griffey. Look, good match. You can see that there's something there with Griffey, but the whole match was built upon the fact that, hey, there's still tension with Swerve and Keith Lee, and that then Swerve ends up leaving Keith Lee, but instead of losing, Keith Lee wins, which I thought this was awesome. I thought that this was a really smart way to continue the drama with these two. And by doing so, now Strickland has something even more to be mad about, because he's going to realize Keith Lee doesn't need him because Lee won on his own. I'm hoping this was good.
I liked this match. I went 4 stars on it. It was one of those 3 4-star matches I mentioned. Griffey was like the 4th best guy in the ring, but I thought he was decent enough that he didn't look completely out of place, but he was clearly like lagging behind the other guys too. So, that kind of situation. Yeah, I think that the Swerve in Our Glory thing needs to kind of blow up and actually reach the turn in the next month or so. I think the pacing is kind of reached the point where like we're ready for the actual blow up or the start of the turn in the feud. So hopefully we'll see that soon. Shane Taylor looked great, I thought. Him and Keith Lee in the ring together was awesome. And I look forward to watching more Shane Taylor in the new Ring of Honor. He was always fun in the old one too. If you're looking for Shane Taylor stuff, just look him up. He's always been a very entertaining guy. But yeah, I like this quite a bit.
Yeah, just overall a good match. I gave it 4 stars. I thought the work was really nice. And you could tell there's something there with Griffey and that MMA gimmick, but I think this is a guy that you're going to want to, he could be the Jungle Boy of Ring of Honor, where Tony Khan sees that there is something massive with this guy, but they need time to grow and cultivate it. And I'm very fascinated to see what it was.
I will say one hilarious thing he did was when he leaped to the outside and Keith Lee caught him in a powerbomb position, and Griffey starts yelling at him, "Don't you do it. I'll tell your mama." And like, I don't know, it was kind of weird, out of place in a match, but also it made me laugh. So there you go.
Yeah.
And it worked. Keith Lee put him down.
Yeah. Let's jump backwards now. I thought this pre-show was
good.
Tremendous. It was one of the better pre-shows I've ever seen for a pay-per-view. I thought everything was good. Nobody looked out of place. And you had some very good matches. I thought the Top Flight and the Kingdom was excellent. Borderline notebook match. And even like 2.0 against the Shinobi Shadow Squad, which is essentially a squash. It was entertaining because you had Menard and Parker just being just dicks. And they're so good at it.
Like, they're very good at being characters. I thought that was the weakest match on the show by far, but it was still like average.
The finish of the Top Flight and Kingdom match was it was like a combination power bomb, springboard, like sliced bread that when Dante Martin gets so much air, it was one of the best finishes I've seen in a long time. And you just have to go and watch it because there's only so much that words can say to properly describe it. And I really hope that they can figure things out long-term with Dante Martin. The kid's 20 years old and he's already doing just ridiculously flippy-do stuff. I love it.
Yeah, he's a super unique talent, and I can't wait to see what his career is like over the next decade or two. Yeah, I like this a lot. I thought this is exactly how you want to do a pre-show. I thought that this is how you make someone want to reach over and hit the buy button. Because you had all those. You also had Willow Nightingale, who I think is just a walking superstar. She looked great in this match with Trish Adora. She hit one of the best pounces I've ever seen. And, she just has, I've heard this comparison multiple times, but I'm going to repeat it because it's correct. She 100% has that NXT Bayley, like super babyface feeling to her. And, her theme music is amazing too. I think she can be a superstar. And I really hope that she's able to fulfill that.
100%. Now, Fred, I think it's time we talk about it. The dog collar match.
Fantastic.
Oh, listen, I think I might overrate some matches. And this is my 9th 5-star match of the year. But when I feel like that connection to wrestling that's truly great, I end up giving it 5 stars. And I have felt that way about 9 matches this year. And this was an easy one. The violence was perfect. The way they integrated everything was very well done. The spots, the J Driller on the chairs, the Dax trying like hell to wrap his head with the chain, but the blood kept preventing it from staying. So he's like, yeah, screw it. So he just lifts the chain above his head and then delivers the headbutt. How Mark Briscoe was yanked from the apron onto the chairs on the ground. The finish, just everything about this match was tremendous. And my 2 match of the year's contenders right now, Fred, are dog collar matches. Like this was excellent. And you know they're not going to go back to this for a while, but they made me want more.
Yeah.
And it's eventually going to happen. And I'm excited to see what they do with it.
This is one of the best matches I've ever seen. I don't say that lightly. I have adopted Dave Meltzer's scale breaking shtick, so I know people get freaked out about, oh, you can't go past 5 stars, whatever. Okay. I do it.
Here's
because
the thing, though. Your old school 5-star matches, this is better than that. Like, what are you going to do? Are you going to say it's the exact same by just giving it 5 stars?
That's why I do it. It's a quick way for me to remind myself, like, this was an all-time great match, but like it went beyond just being that. Mm-hmm. So within that realm, it is my top rated match on the year. I gave it a full 6 stars. I thought this was just absolutely perfect. These guys absolutely killed themselves. Mike Posey blading was perfect. This was chaos. This was violence. It's just so uniquely pro wrestling. And I think it just was perfect for what it was trying to do. I thought they all knocked it out of the park. I thought they all looked great. This was just an all-time match. I think you have to put up the FTR Briscoes trilogy with any other trilogy in the history of pro wrestling. Steamboat Flair, Okada, Omega, anything else. Like, you could point at whatever you want. It doesn't matter. This is up there. This is my match of the year. I can't imagine. I'm trying to get caught up on some stuff that feels like the eternal thing I'm doing. But I have watched over 1,200 matches this year and almost 1,300. Damn. And nothing really compares to this. You can bring up Okada Ospreay from second day at Tokyo Dome. You can bring up Sheamus Gunter, which I love. You can bring up the other FTR Briscoes matches. I think this well surpasses all of them.
Yeah,
remember, like, I think it was last week where I was like, I don't think Dax Harwood has a wrestler of the year case. I think it's fallen apart in the second half of the year. Never mind. I take it back. You got to look at him as a candidate now.
I don't look at
most outstanding.
Here's the thing. I don't look at him as a candidate because in order to go to this level, he still needs Cash Wheeler. And I cannot give him serious consideration for it because he's never had, in my opinion, a great match in the calendar year of 2022 without Cash Wheeler in the ring next to him. And I think that's going to be that limitation for me. And it's not a knock on him per se. That's just kind of the reality of which we're working with within the discussion of this award. Like the way I had these, go ahead.
I will counter with 3 that I think break that mark, that I thought were fantastic matches. His June match with Will Ospreay, I thought was fantastic. I gave it
4.5, so I will retract. He has 1.
Bryan Danielson in November on Dynamite, just a couple weeks ago. I went 4.5 on that.
I gave it 4 stars. I'll be honest, I was very unimpressed.
That's fair. I'm a Bryan Danielson mark, so like anytime he's in the ring, I'm likely to overrate it, but that's fine. Adam Cole from May in Dynamite.
I think I gave that 4.25. Look,
I gave that 4.25.
They're all notebook matches. They're all very good. But I thought there were no great ones. I forgot about Ospreay. That one was great. But I could have a 4-star match with Will Ospreay. Like, that's just kind of how great Ospreay is.
Yeah, but I think also when you consider, like, I think Dax has done enough single stuff to elevate him slightly beyond Cash, and to the point where I think you have to look at him. Because on top of all that, like, they've been working all over the place with the tag stuff, and I think that they've had a fantastic year. They're going to be my tag team of the year. Even before this match, they were going to be my tag team of the year. I was giving a little thought to maybe I should look at the Elite or just the Young Bucks alone as maybe candidates for that, but I don't, they've had FTR Briscoes every match. I think was 5 stars for me, so 5+. So
Yeah, it's how did you have these matches ranked as far as like the first, the second, and the third FTR Briscoe's match?
3-1-2.
See, I had a 3-2-1, and I'm honestly surprised more people don't like the 2 out of 3 falls match, like, because I thought that match was better than the first, and I thought it rivaled this one. It's weird that I'm on this island that I thought the second one was almost as good as the dog collar.
I mean, I'm probably on an island where I would argue that Bryan Danielson and Adam Page from January should be considered for like top 3 or 5 match of the year. So I get it. Trust me. Everyone's got their 1 or 2. But I just think that they worked, that this one was amazing. I thought the best of 3 falls was fantastic too. Like I gave it 5.25 stars, but I gave the first one 5.5. And I think there's just that's how the delineation works for me.
Yeah. It's if you have,
I don't think there's anything. Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with any order, really. Although I would probably look at you a little bit if you didn't say this last one was the best. But
yeah, the last one is the best, and I'm not going to veer from that. Look, this whole card was really, really good. I do want to ask you about Claudio Castagnoli winning the ROH World Championship from Chris Jericho, and then you had 2 Blackpool Combat Club wins. So basically, they essentially won the feud against the Jericho Appreciation Society. What did you think of Claudio winning the belt? And he also won it on a giant swing tap out, which I thought was incredibly perfect from Chris Jericho. Just being like the shitbag heel. It's like, oh, I'm not going to tap out because I'm in pain. I'm going to tap out because I'm like doozy. Like, I thought that was a great finish, but Claudio winning, I thought that was a very interesting outcome because I thought you still had more with this Chris Jericho story arc.
Yeah, I didn't think that Claudio was going to win, but I can't help but interpret this as, Tony Khan knowing that he's going to announce that they are going on Honor Club and not on TV. And as such, he's taken Chris Jericho back to AEW. I think that's 100% what the booking of this match indicated, and I think that's what we got. I thought this was a fine match. I thought it was just about Chris Jericho's worst of the year as far as his big matches, which isn't really a big knock on him. Like, it was a 3.5 star match, but he just didn't look as good as he has been at other points in time. Now, consider his age and everything and the pace he's been going at. I get it. This isn't really a criticism of him, just a note. But I thought it was a fine finish and a fine blow off to the feud. I thought the feud went way too long. That ideally they would have finished this up back after, Blood and Guts, but stuff happened. We had CM Punk's deal. We had Tony Khan trying to get Ring of Honor, TV of some sort. And it was obvious that he was using Chris Jericho as a tool in that, and it didn't work. But yeah, that's kind of my takeaways from that match.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see how it all comes out, because I want to see what ideas Tony Khan has for Claudio Castagnoli as Ring of Honor champion. His first run was Claudio won the belt from Jonathan Gresham to basically get it off of a non-contracted AEW wrestler, which is kind of what that show was, which is fine. It ended up being a very good pro wrestling show. Yeah. But now you have to figure out, how is this going to work long term? Yeah. I don't know what that answer is.
I don't know.
And I'm excited to find out.
I'm a little down on Claudio as like a top guy. I feel like his promo skills have not been going well this year. And I feel like he hasn't really been a, intriguing guy as a top babyface, right now in AEW. I do have 2 complaints about this show coming out of it, which feels very silly. One, I don't know what the idea was with like, this is how we're going to debut Juice Robinson, but doing it with like a 2 minutes tops pre-tape promo on a Rampage and then having him wrestle in the death spot against Samoa Joe and jobbing just felt so weird. that is kind of like a Lucha Underground debut, where early on they would have guys beat up 18 people in a pre-tape video and then go out and job to someone cleanly. It fell out of place. I didn't get it. I think Juice Robinson can be a difference maker wherever he's slotted in AEW / Ring of Honor, but like, this is not a great way to start it, I thought. And secondly, I thought that the match order was all screwed up. The reason, when I was watching the show, I assumed that they had Briscoe's FTR on, where they did, so that they could they would then announce the TV channel immediately after that they were going to be on, and avoid spoiling the results of Briscoe's FTR, because if they announced that it would be a Turner Network, they would all, but I felt like it would guarantee an FTR win because of the reporting that Turner does not want the Briscoes on their channels, or Warner Brothers, I guess I should say. But instead, we didn't get any of that. So I realized Chris Jericho is the biggest star on the card, but it was obvious heading in that there was no way his match with Claudio was going to compare with FTR Briscoes. FTR Briscoes was the hottest thing in Ring of Honor all year, even with the Briscoes not really being around outside of the matches. I don't know. It just felt really weird and like a bad idea to me.
I think I know why Chris Jericho ended up main eventing. It's Chris fucking Jericho.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I get it.
That's really the only reason. But everything you said has a ton of merit. Yeah. The idea is that hottest feud should go on last. And they already put these guys on last at the last pay-per-view. This is arguably a bigger match.
Mm-hmm.
But so I understand it, but I think we can all hypothesize that the whole reason why.
Yeah, and that makes I get it, but I don't think it worked out at all.
You know what? I really cannot argue with that point, Fred. I can't.
That's all.
It's the Juice Robinson thing. I want to challenge your take on it. Juice Robinson was a Ring of Honor wrestler. The fan base knows Juice Robinson. The fan base also knows Juice Robinson from New Japan, which this fan base understands New Japan. They also understand AEW. So my question is, why are we viewing it as a debut per se, when they already know Juice? They don't need more than a couple minute pre-tape to just kind of have like a mini reintroduction. He's a rock hard now. That's about the only major difference. Like I guess I'm missing the fact where it's a big deal. I really don't see it as one at all.
It's less of a, hey, we got to teach these people who he is, and more of a, hey, we should bring him in with momentum kind of feeling. And I think that he doesn't have good momentum right now. And obviously you can correct that in the future on Honor Club, but these are probably going to be his two highest profile appearances outside, unless he gets brought in for something in AEW. And as such, I think maybe, it feels weird to me. That's my dumb take.
Okay, I can see that. But let's get to some AEW, as we're an hour and 20 minutes into the show. We talked about a lot of the William Regal stuff. We talked about Moxley and Takeshita being tremendous. This is something that you put in the show notes that I think we need to touch on. And it ties into everything we've been talking about with Ring of Honor. FTR's chase of AEW titles as their fourth set of belts felt underpromoted. I find that fascinating. And I also find it interesting that they never went all the way with getting FTR those belts. Now, obviously, you came into a super hot act with the Acclaimed. I understand you don't want to take the belts off. You don't want to strip them of their momentum, where FTR doesn't need those belts in order to for any kind of true legacy or whatnot. But I do find it interesting that they did not strap them up in the short window that they had to get them all four belts at the same time. What do you think of that?
It feels weird, doesn't it? Because it felt like if you had told me in January of this year that, or whatever it was, that they had all three belts, I forget exactly like when that had all been picked up, but I thought it was relatively early in the year. But that they had all three belts, but they would end the year without winning the AEW belts at all. I don't know. I would have believed you, because it felt like such an easy story to tell that this felt like it should have been like a major story. Now, I'm not saying they didn't promote it at all. It's not like they just were like, oh, and by the way, we're doing the match tonight in half an hour. Like, they gave it some build, but it felt underbuilt to me. Like, I felt like this could have been a big main event level story that they did for several weeks, and really pushed hard that that FTR was coming for those belts. And even if you still have the Acclaimed win that match, which I think is a perfectly reasonable result, I think that, at least you would have got more value out of that match and out of that booking decision. And I think it would have helped the Acclaimed out just a little more. But that's my take. I mean, it felt colder than I would have expected it. Again, I think the match itself ended up working really well, especially with such a good crowd last week. But I just would have expected it to be pushed as a bigger deal.
And you know what? I agree with you. It felt like there was a real missed opportunity to make these guys into even bigger stars. And now they're about to go into the Tokyo Dome and presumably lose to Aussie Open, who New Japan has been building up as this mega tag team. And I believe they are set to win World Tag League here coming up. I don't believe they have a loss yet. I could be wrong.
I don't think so.
I haven't been following the tour, but last I heard they were undefeated, and it would not shock me if they end up winning the whole thing and not losing a match, and then going on and winning the belts from FTR. And their match at Royal Quest was tremendous. A lot of people were throwing 5 stars at it. So if they're given any kind of ample time in the Tokyo Dome, they could deliver that same type of performance again. And I'm very excited to see how that will evolve.
Quick correction: Naito and Sonata and Hayes Nichols both beat Aussie Open. So I think that they are setting up a final between them and Bushimon, Hiroki Goto, and Yoshihashi. So
hell yeah, I love me some Hiroki Goto. I don't care if he's old. He kicks ass.
He does kick ass.
Like, I would love for Hiroki Goto to just come to the States, work every Dynamite for 6 months, and just have banger matches every night against anybody. Just be the new Takeshita. Because Takeshita, he is now a roster member. They're going to try and actually build him up, and they could make him a mega star.
He could be, but they need to start giving him stuff that matters. They're teasing it with Don Callis. That'll be it. Whatever they have planned with that could be very interesting. But yeah, we need to get this rolling.
And you know what? As he adjusts to life in America, giving him a mouthpiece, I think could honestly be the best thing for him. Don Callis is a tremendous mouthpiece.
Yes.
It feels like Callis is not a babyface. It feels like the split with the Elite is coming, and I don't know what the history with Takeshita and Kenny Omega is as far as matches. I'd assume that they've had a couple back in DDT before Kenny went over to New Japan. Because while Takeshita's only 26, he's been wrestling for a long time.
Yes,
It's not like you're getting a guy who's a spring chicken. So I'm very intrigued to see how that dynamic evolves. And I wonder if the ultimate long-term goal with them teasing the Callis stuff is Takeshita to go over on Kenny Omega and really establish him as that next star.
Takeshita and Tetsuya Endo had several matches opposite Kenny Omega and either Daisuke Sasaki or Kota Ibushi. So but that was way back in 2014. So there you go. I think we're going to see babyface Takeshita managed by heel Don Callis. I think that's what the gimmick's going to be for a while, and then Takeshita will turn, and Callis and whatever other heels he has will feud with him, which will be fun.
I think it will be fun. Otherwise, there isn't a whole lot from Dynamite that I think we need to touch on.
There's one thing we do need to touch on.
Okay.
It would be podcasting malpractice if we did not, which is the Ricky Starks MJF promo segment.
You know what? This show from Ring of Honor was so good. I'm going to be honest. I forgot about how incredible that promo was. I'm pulling it up right now because one, what a birthday present. Like that, I got to watch that show live on my birthday, and that Ricky Starks promo, buddy.
All time, Ricky Starks just killed it. It was so amazing. And
I'm going to be hyperbolic here, Fred. That was the best promo of all time.
I'm not going to argue with you much.
I've ever seen from
it's
wrestler.
On the short list for me. I can't just go say it was the best ever, but damn, it was really high up there. And I thought Ricky Starks, I mean, he didn't just hold his own with MJF. He out-promoted him in a face-to-face segment. And I think I've been saying for a while, Ricky Starks is going to be a superstar. They just need to strap the rocket to him. I hope this is the start of that. I would not have him win this Wednesday. It's too soon in MJF's reign, and it could possibly damage him some. But damn, Ricky Starks is good.
Yeah. So I'll say this. As much as I thought it was the best of all time, I also need to preface it that I don't think it gets to that point unless he has MJF with him.
That really helped it out. But I mean, Starks, once he got the mic, once he did his deal, he was perfect.
Like the Dollar Store Rock and then the Roddy Piper line, and just so much resonated. And like, I think you mentioned it just a few minutes ago. Like, I think if they strapped up Ricky Starks on Wednesday, it's not a mistake.
I don't think it's a mistake. I wouldn't do it because
yes.
I mean, MJF, I think is more valuable in the short term. And, you know, you could argue long term. I'm not going to guarantee that, though, because Starks is that good. But I think that Starks winning in a year or even 6 months after having, you know, beating someone else in a feud and then going after whoever the champion is at that point, I would not blink at that whatsoever.
Yeah, Starks is an absolute slam dunk future champion. He's just incredible.
Yes.
I'm going to go back and watch that promo just because I want to enjoy it. Like, some of the lines are just amazing. Like, he started off, well, Max, I should have expected a fifth-rate Roddy Piper wannabe you wanted to come out here. Every single week you come out here and smell and you think you're better than me. Give me a break. Everything about you screams cheap. The cheap suit, the cheap shoes, the cheap heat. Like, all-time stuff.
He's fantastic. I could watch that every day until I die and just love it every day. There is one more thing from Dynamite that we have to mention before we go. The absolute snuff film that was Samoa Joe Darby Allin. That was a fantastic match, way better than I thought it would be, and I thought it would be a very good match. But like, Darby Allin bumped like I don't even know if I've ever seen Darby Allin bump like that. But that was like an all-time bumping performance. He fed Samoa Joe so much, made Samoa Joe just look like the biggest killer ever in the history of man, and it was great. I just had to get that out. Made sure we talked about that too, because perfect, just perfect.
Yeah, I need to actually go back and rewatch it because at that time I just pulled off a prime rib from the smoker and I was making sure I had all that ready. So that's something I need to go back and do.
Please rewatch that match. It's not going to end up on like a match of the year list for me at least, but I could see someone doing that, putting it on there. It was a fantastic performance by Darby.
I love Darby, so
He's
I will
great.
do that. What is next for AEW? Winter is Coming is this upcoming Wednesday. MJF versus Ricky Starks. Winner takes all because MJF won the first 3 Dynamite Diamonds. He did not have to enter the Battle Royal, so he took on the winner, and Ricky Starks is cashing in that along with his title opportunity that he earned just a couple weeks ago on Dynamite. You have Game 4, Death Triangle versus the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega.
Game 5, I think.
No.
Oh, Game 4? Okay. All right, my bad.
Because remember, I ranted last week about how they did not give me a match on my birthday and how I'm more important than everybody. So House of Black will also have a match, which that will probably kick so much ass. And
it'll be a fun squash, I'm sure.
Ruby Soho versus Tay Mello. Like, let's get Ruby Soho doing something else. I think she could also be a potential partner for Saraya because of that WWE lineage. Like, it's not a 1-to-1.
Yeah.
But like Sasha Banks would make way more sense considering how much crossover there was. But that could be it. And just wrap that up and get Ruby doing something because she's a nice value to the women's division. That's our show, Fred.
Yeah, that's it. I do want to quickly plug on AEW Dark last week. There was a very good main event between Anthony Henry and Trent Beretta, which I went like 3 3/4 on. I thought it was just a very entertaining match. Beretta worked way harder than he probably had to be honest. But I like Anthony Henry a lot. He's a very underrated worker. Definitely worth checking that out. But yeah, that's all I got this week. It was a great week in wrestling, especially AEW. Just a lot of fun all around.
Hey, just this is more of a Tony Khan show, I guess, at this point than is a true AEW show because we're talking so much Ring of Honor. But he's been doing such a tremendous job putting out entertaining wrestling that I think this could really be a banner like next year because there's so much that could potentially happen. And I'm very excited to continue to see how everything will evolve.
And as good as this year was, I thought it was overall a very good year for AEW. Not as good as 2021, but consider how snake bit they were. I mean, I thought they exceeded expectations. And I thought that what we did get from Ring of Honor was always entertaining. So I think he's had a very good year.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do the final stuff. You can follow us at Good Bad Hungee on Twitter. You can follow me at The Real Forno, especially if you love football content. I have plenty of that coming. You can follow Fred at Flagrant Wrestling. You can ask us questions on the Voice of Wrestling Discord server where we will make sure we answer them, and you can talk to us about the product. Make sure you subscribe, rate, and review the show on whatever podcasting platform you are using to help us grow and get our show out there to everyone. And listen, enjoy the product. This is a fun time to be a wrestling fan, and we've been saying it for years, considering AEW's been around for a few, but this is a peak time in professional wrestling, and enjoy it while it's here.
Yeah, wrestling is great, but it's really great right now. To pay homage to the wonderful job by Caprice Coleman and Ian Riccoboni on the pay-per-view. Happy wrestling, everyone.
Happy wrestling.